Welcome back to Upfront Gwinnett, Suffering in Silence. Hey, how you doing? Our first responders are our frontline heroes. Their compassion leads them to rush into burning homes, solve crimes, and comfort those whose loved ones are sadly now a memory. But behind their badge, behind their bravery, behind their selfless attitude is a topic that's often overlooked: their mental health. On this episode, we'll look into those silent struggles and the resources available to help them. Thank you.
Mental health has always been a challenge here in Gwinnett County, but the pandemic has certainly exacerbated the issue. You've had the stress and the strain of people losing their jobs, losing their homes. It has really taken a toll on our community.
Gwinnett Police Chief J.D. McClure says officers make sure the public is safe through intense training.
During the course of our approximately 24-week academy, our officers are going to receive approximately 88 hours of training. This is related to mental health. This is related to interpersonal communications.
And related to saving lives.
When you all are on a scene and police has assessed the situation, what is your role once they activate and say, fire, come in?
Our first role is to make sure that it's not an underlying medical issue that we need to address. For instance, we're going to get in there and start vital signs as soon as possible.
When we step on scene, it's about us controlling the situation. And sometimes when we lose that control in our personal lives, those are the things that really cause the problems.
Lieutenant Frederick Saldana works for Gwinnett Police. For 15 years, he served on the Critical Incident Stress Management Support Team. When Upfront Gwinnett asked him to talk about first responders and mental health, he jumped at the chance.
It became a passion for me when 4 years ago I had an officer come to me who was struggling with their mental health and had suicidal ideations. And at the time, I didn't have the training or the resources to be able to help them.
A study by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration reveals that these heroes are significantly more likely to suffer from PTSD, depression, and anxiety. Shockingly, 30% of first responders develop behavioral health issues compared to 20% of the general population.
What do you think contributes to some of the mental health crises that first responders are experiencing?
It's the constant seeing bad things happen to people, death, and seeing it on a day-to-day basis. Over time, it is going to compound and become a bigger issue. A lot of people not asking for that help leads them to think that there's no hope, and the only way out is through suicide.
And alcoholism, correct?
Yes. Alcoholism in the profession of being a first responder is extremely high.
Experts say talking with someone to get help may prove an even bigger challenge. Mental health has a stigma in the profession as showing a sign of weakness. But Fire Chief Fred Cephas says there's hope and strength in shared purposes.
If you're talking to somebody who cannot relate to what you're going through, a lot of times public safety members do not want to talk. They're more apt to talk to somebody who understands them, who have experienced the similar incidents that they've responded to. So it's the right person that helps in that matter.
In fact, Cephas says after any traumatic event, Gwinnett Fire's own critical incident stress management team responds to responders. And they also use a course called GUIDE.
GUIDE, which is an 8-hour course that we've done for the last 2 years, that we've ran all of our personnel through to make sure we talk about incidents like this and how to deal with stress, how to recognize stresses.
Meanwhile, police introduced mandatory counseling for its units experiencing high levels of trauma as well.
There's a large amount of first responder military veteran programs that are starting to come up because the need is so high. When an officer knows that the chief of police is going to support them getting whole, happy, and healthy again, that's huge because they don't have to worry about their job.
Saldana says with that support, he's able to send police officers to inpatient treatment facilities across the country, from Harbor of Grace in Maryland to Shatterproof in Fort Lauderdale, and another program called Willing Way in South Georgia.
When they go to these facilities, the program lasts as long as the officer needs it. They really start creating an aftercare program for the officers. So when they get back and they're out of the sterile environment, they will now be given the resources to continue that sobriety. There is hope and there's help, because your legacy isn't tied to what you do while wearing this uniform. Your legacy is going to be tied to what you do with those that you love.
Consider this sobering statistic. The CDC says that first responders make up 1% of all suicides nationwide. Guys, that's 1% too many. As I wrap up this episode, first responders are on standby 24/7, ready to serve. They too need our support. Coming up on the next episode of Upfront Gwinnett, Suffering in Silence.
I think what you're going to see in Gwinnett County in the coming years is us to become that beacon, that light on the hill that says, mental health, behavioral health is not a stigma.
Judge Ballard asked to meet because he was seeing these orders to apprehend were kind of increasing in the county. Like, okay, what's going on here? It seems like all you can do right now is check yes or no. You're either going to go home, the answer is no, or the answer is yes, and you're going to go to Viewpoint Health Crisis Stabilization. I said, how many of these would be like a maybe so, like a gray area?
Until then, I'm Deborah Tuff.
If you or a loved one are experiencing a crisis and need immediate assistance, call 988 to speak with a mental health professional or call 911 for law enforcement assistance.